Hello, everyone. Dr. Schooley, President of the Florida Family Therapy Alliance. I am happy to introduce to you Adana Bell, who has presented for us before, but she's presenting on a different topic tonight on Understanding Grief, a therapist's guide to navigating the journey of loss and healing. Adana is a longtime licensed marriage and family therapist here in South Florida and is in solo practice and is a book author that has actually is an award-winning book author. So we're very excited for her. And at some point along the way, Adana, we hope that you will show us your book so that we can note the title and people who are here tonight and who watch the video can obtain it. So Adana, with no further ado, we welcome your presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Adana Bell, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. For the sake of this particular training, we are going to be talking about loss as in we've lost a person. I do know, and we all know, that loss can be the loss of a relationship, a friendship, romantic relationship, a pet, even losing a job. But for this particular training, we're going to be talking about loss as if someone as in someone has passed away. Okay. And please, I want you all to be interactive. Talk to me, ask questions, raise hands, tell me what's on your mind as we go through this training. Okay. Again, Understanding Grief, a therapist's guide to navigating the journey of loss and healing. Okay. I am, again, a licensed marriage and family therapist and qualified supervisor. I have been in private practice with my practice after Happily Ever After for 11 years. It'll be 12 years in June. I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a widow. I'm a public speaker and an award-winning author. And this is the book, Heal Sister Heal, A Sister's Guide to Wholeness. It won the 2025 International Impact Book Award for Women's Empowerment last year. You can also, I put down where you all can find me, my LinkedIn, my Instagram, as well as my website. By the end of this training, I hope that you all will explore the concepts of grief, complicated grief and how it differs from mourning, explore the clinical needs of clients who has survived the death of a loved one, and reflect on self-care practices, working with the Kübler-Ross model of grief as layers and using healthy responses to your own personal triggers. I do understand that grief is a very heavy topic. If you're feeling triggered, or if you're having some feelings of grief of your own, please feel free to step away. It is okay. I completely understand. Now, there are two truths about grief. You will grieve and you will be grieved. Those two truths are unescapable. Before we get into the training, let me share my grief journey. On February 9th, 2019, as I was leaving work, I received a call from Memorial Hospital asking me if I knew someone named Twan Bell, and I said, yes, that is my husband. They explained to me that he had been in a car accident and that I needed to get to Memorial Hospital. As I was driving, I realized that Memorial called me and not him, which put me in my panic mode. I called my dad, talked to him, explained to him what was happening. He said a prayer, told me to not get into an accident trying to get to him. I called my children's godmother and asked him to go get my son, who was playing at friend's house next door, because I didn't know what was going on. When I got to the hospital, I went to the security and I gave them my husband's name, and the gentleman at the security gate called up and said, the trauma is here. He told me where to go. I went upstairs, and this very nice woman brought me into a very sterile room and sat me down and said, your husband has been in a car accident. He has a brain swell that is non-life sustaining. And I went, wait, are you telling me my husband is dying? She said, yes. And we have to get you back there because we've already restarted his heart once. I called my family. I called his family. I called our daughter, who was a freshman in college at the time, trying to rally the troops. They brought me into this room, into where he was. And when I saw him, I started speaking to him. He was unconscious, but I started speaking to him. And the nurse in the room said to me, "He knows you're here. He can hear you. We haven't been able to stabilize his heart, but now his heart is stabilizing." With that, I started talking to him. I started praying for him. I told him that it was okay to let go. And at 6:40, they pronounced my husband dead. The phone call I received initially was at 5:11, and by 6:40, he was gone. And that began my grief journey. I woke up a wife, I went to bed a widow, and now a single mother. We were married almost 25 years. We were talking about our 25th wedding anniversary later on that year. And our children at the time were 18 and 11, a month before his 12th birthday. That began my personal and intimate journey with grief. I believe in having grief quotes. So the first grief quote you're going to see is, "Grief is a journey. Grief is love that has no place to go." And this was spoken by the actress Regina King after her son completed suicide a few years ago. And this is a true quote. This is exactly what grief is. You don't have that person to give that love to anymore. And that's where it happens. That's where grief comes from. So let's talk about the differences between grief, mourning grief, and complicated grief. Mourning is defined as the expression of deep sorrow for someone who has died. Grief is defined as deep sorrow, especially caused by someone's death. And complicated grief is defined as when grieving continues to be intense, persistent, and debilitating beyond 12 months. Other than complicated grief, mourning and grief sound very similar, does it not? It sounds very, very similar. So let's talk about some examples. So because there are differences. Mourning is a public display, such as attending a wake, a memorial service, or a funeral. Also, in this country, wearing black as a sign of respect. Grief, on the other hand, is more internal. It involves crying, reflecting on memories, and feeling isolated. And then complicated grief is a long-lasting grief that occurs after a loss. It causes intense emotions and consuming thoughts that don't fade over time and can affect your daily life. An example of this is still crying every day after years. Every day you're still crying. It's been 10, 11 years, you're still crying. Or you're still not sleeping in your bed. Or if some parents who have lost a child may still sleep in their child's bed. Now, we understand those things do happen, but if it goes on for over a year, that's when it becomes complicated grief. And even finding things out about your person after they're gone, where you can't talk to them about it. I've known people who have found out that their spouse was cheating on them, but they didn't find out until after the person had died. That also complicates the grief, because now you're not only grieving their loss, but you're angry. And you don't have that person to confront or to talk to about what you're going through. Okay? Now, there are cultural differences in how people grieve. Here in our Western culture, grief is viewed as an individual journey. Some public displays are accepted. However, there is also a societal expectation to just move on after a certain amount of time. However, in Eastern cultures, grief is viewed as communal, where families and community come together to mourn. Here in our country, we expect people, like it says, to move on after a certain amount of time. That certain amount of time is unknown, but I remember someone asking me after 3 months if I was okay now. Well, and all I said to her was, yeah, but obviously I was not. But we do think that after a certain amount of time, a person should just move on. You're fine. You're fine. Why are you still crying about this? It's been 3 months. It's been 6 months. It's been this amount of time. And grief has no time limit. And I'm curious to know, do you all know of any other cultural differences that how people express grief?
I can tell you there's an expectation in the Seminole tribe of Florida,
Mhm.
and that would be of the Miccosukee tribe as well, is that there is an intense 4 months of public mourning and the maintaining of a fire, a bonfire, not a bonfire, but a fire. And then at the end of those 4 months, it's expected to be done, and the person is not to be spoken of again, which can be very challenging if that person perhaps was the source of trauma for someone. And so if someone is in therapy and trying to process not only the grief but also the trauma of that person, their culture says they're not supposed to talk about it.
120 days. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Does
I
anyone
know
else
that,
have?
yes, in the Albanian culture, actually, and there's some religious aspect to this as well from the Muslim religion, it's a 40-day mourning period where you're supposed to abstain from any sort of joy and an outward expression of mourning and wearing all dark colors for that time. And the family is supposed to stay home and receive visitors after the actual burial.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Thank you. True grief doesn't begin until after the funeral is over and everyone leaves. And here's why I say that. During the first few days, week, or however it takes, you have a flood of people coming into your home, people calling you, people bringing tons and tons and tons of food because, of course, you don't feel like cooking. You also don't feel like eating, but people are bringing food, they're calling you, they're coming by. And then the funeral happens. And after the funeral happens, everyone leaves and they go back to their lives. And that is when your grief, your internal grief begins because now you're alone with it. There's no escaping it after everyone leaves. Now you're alone with it and it's looking you in your face and you're now dealing with your personal grief. Has anyone ever heard of widow's fog? Yeah, I saw Dr. Boyd shaking her head. Yes. Widow's fog, and it's like this. It's almost like as soon as the person passes away, and it's not just for widows and widowers, it's for anyone, but that's what they call it. It's almost like this fog, and it does, just kind of comes over you. And the only way I could describe it was imagine walking outside at night in a thick fog. What would you feel? Would you feel disoriented? Yes. Would you feel derealization? Yes. Fear, anxiety, or wanting to withdraw and hide. Those are the things that happen when when a person is experiencing widow's fog. You don't want to talk to people. You literally want to just coop up and hide. There's a fear to it. I don't want to see anyone. I want to hide. I want to hide, not in the bed, under the bed. And it passes, but it takes time for it to pass. I learned this particular phrase when I was in the throes of my own grief, but it makes perfect sense because it really does come down on you like a fog. It does eventually pass, but it does take time to pass. You go out, and this is the best way to describe it for me. I'm sure all of us have gone to Publix and been in there too long. And when you come out, you go, where did I park the car again? Widow's fog is that times a million. I can't even say 1,000. It's worse. It's like that times a million because you are literally like, what's happening? I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on. I can't see straight. I can't think straight. It is, you're trying to see within a fog and you can't. Um, and I've actually had other widows and widowers tell me the same thing. That's what they went through when they lost their spouse. Grief has a look to it: inability to sleep, nightmares, poor or no appetite, which does cause weight loss. A lot of people, when they lose their person, they lose a lot of weight. And it's the stress and of course, it's grief. Fear, tears, and numbness, not being able to feel anything. You don't feel anything. It's almost like, I don't know, almost like when you've gotten numb at the dentist in your mouth, you can't feel it when you do like this. You can't feel anything. And it's a very strange feeling that people go through, but it is what happens during the grief process. And then, is it grief? Some people say they feel pain. If you're ever with a client that is in the grieving process and they say, my stomach hurts at times, or my head hurts at times, I'm in all this pain, that can be the grief. If there's no other reason that they're going through this, having these pains, it could be the grief. There were times where I would go outside and I'm like, you know what, my stomach hurts. I can't be out here. I can't. I can't. If a person comes to you and says, I'm in pain and it hurts, this hurts or that hurts, and there's no real reason for it, no, not real reason, no physical reason for it, it can definitely be their grief. It can also look as overindulgence. They're eating a lot. They're cleaning what's already clean. Some people begin to have sex with just different random people. They're overindulging in sex. They're overindulging in substance use, and which can lead to substance abuse. And then fighting. You're like, well, what do you mean fighting? Well, anger. I'm so angry that I want to lash out. That is a part of their grief. Have you heard of this in your own practices when you're talking to your clients about this, when they're grieving, that they're feeling pain or they're feeling like they want to fight or they're doing things that are just not healthy for them? Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the stages of grief as layers. I told Anna Lynn before we started, I thought about going to grab an onion, because to me, this is the best way to describe these layers, because an onion has so many layers. The stages of grief, we know that Elizabeth Kübler-Ross developed the 5 stages of grief. However, in my mind, they're layers. I want you to think about this onion. You're peeling it and you're peeling it and you're peeling it and you're going through all these layers, and what's happening? Your hands are getting wet, it's sticky, it's stinky, and what are you doing? You're crying. Grief and tears. The layers cause the tears. Let's talk about each layer. Shock. You wonder what's happening. I can't believe this is happening. How is this my life? But I want you to think about it like this. When someone passes away, the initial shock is, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person has passed away. But then you also think, oh, it's not real. They're going to call and say it was a mistake. It was somebody else. And then we go to bed, we go to sleep, and wake up the next morning, and guess what? That person has still passed away. The family members now are going through the exact same thing. However, have any of you ever lost someone and you go to pick up the phone to call them? And as soon as you pick up your phone, you go, oh, that's a part of the shock. Or you're sitting on your couch and you go, I can't believe you're dead. I can't even say your name and dead together. It doesn't make sense. And every time you think it, every time someone else says it to you, it's like you feel it, a little bit of that shock, almost like, when you go and you touch something and you get shocked. It's the same feeling. And that layer can go on for quite some time because it doesn't seem natural. It doesn't seem real to you. You're still expecting that person to come in the house or call you. For a good 6 months, I would look at my rearview mirror and I would see a car that resembled my late husband's car. And I knew it wasn't him. And when I saw his car, oh my gosh, the first time I saw the same color, make, and model of his car, again, that is the shock. It just hit differently. And then there's denial. And with denial, you may say, no, he or she isn't dead. This is a mistake, kind of going back to shock. But with denial, it's, this doesn't make sense. No, this didn't happen. He or she will be back. They're coming back. I almost fell into that trap where I was saying, oh, he'll be back in a year. He'll be back in a year. And something told me, nope, you can't believe that. You know it's not true. Come out of that. But a lot of people may think that and go a year, and then their person doesn't come back. And then it just makes their grief even worse. That causes the complicated grief. But just trying to grasp it, and you're like, no, this can't be. I was just talking to this person. I just saw this. My daughter saw her father hours before his death. My son was at home playing with friends when he left the house and said, I'll see you later. So the denial of, no, this can't be it, because I just saw this person, or I just spoke to this person on the phone. What do you mean they're dead? And then, of course, there's the anger. And a lot of people have talked to me about this, where they say things to me like, I wish people would stop telling me that he or she is in a better place. Their better place is beside me. They were not supposed to leave yet. And for those who are religious or who believe in God, will say, where is God in all this? People have been saying to me, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. I don't want to hear that. I want my person next to me. I want them present with me. That is a part of the anger. Or they'll become angry. They'll say, I'm angry with God, but I know I shouldn't be angry with God. And I've had people say that to me, and I will say back to them, if God is the one that has your answers, why not tell him that you're angry with him? It's okay. It's okay to say it if that's how you feel. Or they'll lash out at their loved ones unintentionally. They'll lash out with them to themselves. They'll hurt themselves, not necessarily to take their life, but just to feel something, and they're angry, and they can't seem to focus, and they're yelling more. If they want to yell, they're yelling more. They're just going through this terrible part of grief. And keep in mind, we call it the stages, but nothing about this is a stage. A stage is linear. It does like this. Grief is complicated. It goes up and down and around like a crazy roller coaster that you can't get off of for a while. And then, of course, there is depression, which is the tears and the withdrawing, and again, the inability to eat or sleep. And that's when grief becomes very isolating. When you're crying and withdrawing from people, because no one can understand what you're going through. This is what you think. And with my clients, I always tell them, I don't understand your grief, but I do understand what grief is. And a lot of the times when we're talking about the things that they're dealing with, I'll say something to them and they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm feeling. That way they understand that someone does get it. Someone gets what grief is, what it looks like. But the depression, the withdrawal, the tears, and some people say, well, I don't want to cry in front of people. Well, why not? Because I'm the strong one. And I always tell them, this is the time where you don't have to be strong. And that's a part of the anger too, the anger and the depression. Well, everyone's telling me to be strong. Everyone's telling me not to cry. This is the time you are allowed to cry. This is the time that you are allowed to lean on others. And this is the time that you are allowed to not be strong. I've even asked clients, I don't know if you all have done this before, but I've asked clients in the past, have you given yourself permission to grieve yet? And they look and they go, no, because they were told they couldn't, because they had to be strong. They had to take care of things. So they could not grieve. Well, can you grieve now? Are you allowed to grieve now? And a lot of times that's what starts it. They're giving themselves permission to grieve. And then, of course, is acceptance, understanding this is your new life, whether, you didn't ask for it, but this is what it is. And although acceptance is the last stage, understand that it can start over again. I accept that this is what it is, but I'm still crying. I'm still angry at times. I'm still in shock at times. But I've accepted this is where I am. This is my new life. Any questions or comments about this before I move on? It makes sense?
I could have one comment.
Yes.
Kessler, who worked with Ross, added the sixth stage of meaning.
What's the sixth stage? I'm sorry?
Finding meaning.
Finding meaning. Okay. Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. And finding meaning, you have to figure out who you are now after the person has passed away. Who am I now? I'm no longer this person's spouse. I'm no longer this person's grandchild. I'm no longer this person's, whatever your role was in that person's life. So who am I now? And you have to find yourself and find meaning in who you are today. Okay. Thank you for that, Karen. For some reason, people talk about grief as the shoulds. And what I mean by that is I should be in a different place. So it's been 2 years since this person has passed away. I should be in a better place now. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Or I should do my life the way he or she wanted me to do it. Any other way is completely wrong. Or we should be doing this to honor him, or we should be doing that to honor her. And a part of finding the new meaning is understanding that you no longer have to do it that way. You can do it your way, and you can still honor the person that has passed away in doing and doing it differently. But we have to let go of the shoulds. We have to learn that the way it was now is not the way it was then is not how it has to be now. And the only thing you should be doing is doing the best that you can during your grief journey. Okay. There are many things that can trigger a grieving person. It can be dates, birthdays, anniversaries, Mother's Day, Father's Day, days. The day that the person died can be a trigger for a while. So if a person passes away on a Monday, Mondays may bother them. If they died at Monday at 2:30 on Mondays can be a trigger for a person. So the dates, the days, specific smells. If your person was a baker and they made, I don't know, I'm going to go to my Southern roots and say a peach cobbler, and you smell a peach cobbler cooking, it can trigger you. Just the smell of it. Going into Bath and Body Works for the longest time triggered me, especially in autumn, because it was one of the things that we shared that we liked, the smells of autumn. You go in there, you smelling all the candles. So for a long time, that was a trigger for me. Songs, wedding songs, the song that was playing when we met, the song that was playing when you accepted my marriage proposal. Those things can definitely trigger a person. You hear it randomly, you hear your wedding song randomly, you may find yourself in tears somewhere. Okay. Or the unexpected. So last year, someone that I love had to go into the hospital for surgery. They went into Memorial Hospital, not that Memorial Hospital, but Memorial nonetheless. And as I was walking, I'd run back to my car to grab something. I was going back to the emergency room. They told me where to go. As I was walking, all of a sudden, I was triggered. I was back in 2019, walking down the hallway at Memorial Hospital. And it triggered me in a way that I was not, again, the unexpected. I was not expecting this type of trigger. And I had to swallow it to take care of what was being taken care of. But not realizing that that was something that was going to happen. The unexpected can trigger grief. It can be years from when the person passed away, but still, it is a trigger for them. It's a trigger for you. It could be a trigger for children. It could be triggers for parents. It can still be a trigger, the unexpected. When those things happen, you have to help them deal with it in real time. This happened. Okay, what did you do? What are the coping skills that you used when you were triggered? And they may not have been able to use any coping skills because they were so taken aback by it. They didn't know what to do with it. So keep in mind that the unexpected can happen. The regular things that I just talked about, like dates, the first year is always the hardest year, but those dates and those days can definitely cause a person to be triggered. But the unexpected is one of those that just kind of, it's like a wave, and it hits very hard when it comes at you. Okay. Before we get into the grief exercises, are there any questions or comments before I keep going? Because I know we're supposed to stop at 7:30, but we're going to be done a lot faster. So I want to make sure. Okay. All right. Grief exercises. Going out and getting some exercise, whether it's going for a walk in the park, going to the gym, just getting out and exercising helps a person that is grieving. Journaling. They can do a gratitude journal, or they can have a journal that they use just to write to the person that has passed away. Or they can write in it as little or as often as they like, but it just gives them the opportunity to get it out of their system. Then there's the breath work or breath break. I know as therapists, we do this with our clients all the time, when they can inhale for a few seconds, hold for a few seconds, and then exhale for a few seconds. You can teach your clients to do that. You can do that yourself. Do grounding work with them to help them as they're dealing with their grief, especially if they're dealing with anxiety because of their grief. That is very important to help them with these exercises. And then there's gardening, and people are very surprised when I bring this up, but with gardening, you can have your client write a letter to their deceased person, and they can line a flower box or something with that letter, and they can grow something out of it. Or just gardening in general. You're planting seeds for the springtime, or you're planting herbs or whatever you're wanting to plant, but just going out there and having a green thumb and growing something can help with the grief. There's life growing up. There's life growing up out of the dirt, and I'm taking care of it and I'm nurturing it. And this is helping me deal with my grief. I've had clients discuss doing that. Some people actually, they also do other exercises, like they go out and take dance classes. They learn how to crochet. Some people write books. Some people join different groups, like meetup groups. Whatever it is that's healthy for them that they want to try, by all means, they should be able to try it. Some people even help other grievers, and that helps them in their grief. But these four are the ones that I thought would be beneficial in therapy at the beginning stages of grief when dealing with someone who's grieving. This is from a book that I read last year. Public grief is tricky to negotiate. At a certain point, and it varies depending on the person and circumstances, there comes a time when you should be over it. You should have moved on by now, and you're so aware of the fact that you have not, that you cannot. You don't want others to see your past due tears or sense the pain that has outstayed its welcome. You protect them from feeling awkward because you're still in pain. When the facade fails and you lose it, the stares soaked in sympathy are as bad as the ones filled with contempt. This is from the book Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. And when I read this quote, I felt like that just put it in a nice, pretty little bow. It wrapped it up and put it in a nice, pretty bow for us, because this is how a lot of people who are grieving feel. People want you to be over it. They want you to, again, move on, and you're in it. You have to go through the process of grief. No one wants grief to last long. When people think you should have gone past it and they see you're crying, they do look at you with sympathy. They do look at you feeling bad for you, or pitying you even, which is not what a griever wants. But some people also look at a person with contempt. Like, why are you still doing this? Why are you embarrassing yourself in public? When you have that client who says, I don't want to cry in front of people, this could be why. Because when I do, people are looking at me with contempt. When I do, people are looking at me with pity, and I don't want to be pitied. Yes? Any questions or comments about that? Okay. So there are some things to know. The first thing is that the first year is always the hardest. No, I'm not sorry. Sorry, wrong one. Crying. Wait, I have to go back. I apologize. The first year is always the hardest year. The only wrong way to grieve is to not grieve. There are people who try really hard not to grieve, and not grieving can bring about a whole set of different problems. It can make a person sick. It can make a person go into a deep depression. You have to grieve. You have to be able to express your grief, and to not do it is the only thing that you can do that's wrong. You may have a client that says, I want to go back to the person I was before he or she died. They can't. They are now a different person. The roles have changed. The roles have shifted. The roles have ended. You cannot go back to the person that you once were, because you're no longer that person. Some clients, like I just said before, will try to rush the grieving process. And this is not the best thing for them. They may say after 6 months, okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. It's done. Whatever, I'm good now. And then maybe a couple of months later, they come to you and they're crying, and they're like, I thought I was done. And why is this happening again? And I don't understand it. You tried to rush the process. There is no timestamp on grieving, but don't rush it. You grieve until you stop. And grieving will slow down. It will. Some people go from crying every day to crying every other day, to crying once a week, to crying once a month, to crying every six months or so, to crying maybe once a year. But if you rush the process, you're going to find yourself stuck in it longer than you want it to be. And we talked about before, clients may feel the need to be strong for anyone and everyone, and they don't. They don't have. That was one of the worst things someone told me as a griever. Oh, you have to be strong for your children. And the answer to that was no, I don't. This is the one time I don't have to be strong. In fact, the strongest thing that I can do is allow them to see me crying and to see me grieving. No one has to be strong for anyone else while they are in this process. And if your client is telling you this, please tell them, no, they don't. They don't have to be strong. And especially in front of you, you are the safe space. They definitely don't have to be strong in front of you. This is the place where they can actually let go and cry and feel and grieve and say all the things that they don't think they can say to anyone else. Something else is that crying is allowed, no matter what others may say or feel about it. If someone tells a person, oh, stop crying, you shouldn't be crying anymore. No, they have to cry. Let them cry. Again, like I said, they may only feel comfortable crying in front of you. Let them do it. There is no such thing as getting over it. In fact, I hate that when people say, "Oh, I just have to get over it." No, you don't have to get over it. What we have to do is learn to live with it. But you don't have to, there's no such thing as getting over it. There is such a thing as living with it, living with the grief, living with the absence of the person. Grief is a moment by moment thing, even years later. There will be days where it's just hard. I tell people who are grieving and they're coming up on the year anniversary, and they may be doing very well and have been doing very well for months, but we're coming up on the year anniversary now. You may start to feel funny a month before the anniversary. And you may not cry the day of the anniversary. It might be the week before, the day after, 2 weeks after, 2 weeks before. It is a moment by moment thing. When a person first dies, it seems like the waves of grief come hard, fast, and heavy. And it's like it is devastating. As time goes on, those waves don't come as hard or as heavy, and they're not as devastating. However, when they do come, it can still be difficult for the person who's experiencing the grief. They learn to ride that wave because they know it's going to come, I'm going to feel, and it'll be over. But when you're first starting out, those moments are difficult. And those moments can be difficult day one or day 2001. Your clients and yourself, give yourself and your clients grace as you're dealing with those moments. There are people who are going to lean and depend on their faith. Give them space to discuss it. If they say, in my faith, we do it like this, or in my faith, we do it like that, or I've been going to church more often, just trying to understand. I've spoken to my pastor. My pastor has given me pastoral counseling. Lean into it with them. Because sometimes they need to talk to you as a clinical person, but they also need to talk to their pastor for the spiritual part of it, to just understand. Give them that space to discuss what it is that they're dealing with and what their questions are for God or their higher power. When you're leaning on your faith, how does it give you peace? How does it help you? And listen to their answers and listen to what they're saying, because it is so important to them. Any questions or thoughts about what people need to know?
Well, Edwina, this has been very helpful. Yesterday, just to share a personal piece, is that yesterday was the 8th year that my daughter died. And each year, it's very tough the first year, but each year it really has a different kind of impact on me of losing my only child. And so one of my granddaughters and her husband were here over the weekend, and we were trying to decide, make some decisions about what to do with some of the things that we still were holding on to. Mm-hmm. And of course, it brought back up all the emotional stuff all over again.
Yes.
All the memories, funny things. And the grandson in Pennsylvania and another granddaughter in Pennsylvania, they reviewed pictures of their mother. So, in a way, they are in the process of helping me deal with it rather than me helping them at this point, because I was very, strong in putting things together during that period of time. So, but it does last a long time, and it can several phases.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yes.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. And it does. It can last as long as you last, because we have the memories of the person that has passed away. We we have those wonderful memories, like you said, where we can laugh and I was laughing to myself last night. I was thinking about something when I lived in Rochester, New York, when my late husband was in grad school, laughing about things that we experienced there, just two Southern kids dealing with the snow, just laughing about things like that. And every year, like we said, the first year is definitely the hardest year. But every year, like you said, it brings a different thing. It brings different emotions where there may not be necessarily tears, but definitely memories and reflecting. And I'm glad that your grandchildren are there to help you, Dr. Boyd. I'm so glad that they're there for you in that way. And we need that. We need the people in our lives to be there. One of the worst things is when we don't talk about the person that we love that's passed away. Because we start to feel that, well, maybe people are forgetting about him or her. We didn't forget. Maybe they forgot. When we call their names, when we talk about them, when we have funny stories about them that we can share, that keeps them alive in our hearts.
Mhm.
Yes. And I am sorry that you lost your daughter. I did not know. I'm very sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, in 2015, I lost my husband
Yes.
of years of marriage. So, I mean, it's just been a whirlwind of coming to terms with all the changes that were required and necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way, who am I now? That's a big question for me, because who am I now that I'm not a wife?
Right.
Who am I now because I'm not a mother?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a grandmother. And so it's so true that you begin to ask the question, who am I with all these changes in my life? What
Mm-hmm.
is happening for me? And how do I keep going? What do I want to take forward? What do I want to discontinue? What do I want to do about all this?
Mm-hmm. And there are changes that I didn't ask for. I didn't ask to lose this person or that person. It was given to me. I didn't have a choice in the matter. It was given to me.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I now? I'm no longer a wife, I'm no longer a mother, but who am I today? And who do I want to become?
Exactly.
Right. That's a really hard part of it. Who do I want to become?
Mm-hmm.
Karen, did you want to say
I
something?
was going to say developing a new self-identity is one of Alan Wolfelt's tasks for mourning. So
Mm-hmm. It definitely is. Trying to figure out, I no longer have to do this or do that anymore. What do I do with my time? What do I do with me now?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? And once you figure out what you want to do, how do I go about doing it? you know, um, I'm in a couple of different grief groups, and that's one of the things. What do I do with my time now? I want to go out, but I really don't want to go. I really don't want to go out. I want to make new friends, but I don't know how I feel about that. Who am I? I used to be this outgoing person, and now I've become more reclusive. I don't want to be that person.
Mm-hmm. I think
It's
one of the things that helps, um, um, some of my friends, they they have put together a group of colleagues of people who are sort of in the middle of re-identifying,
Mhm.
and they get together every week
Oh, wonderful.
because they're all close around here,
Hmm.
and yet they have fun with it and cook and eat and share, the joy of having close friends. And I think
Hmm.
that's been a strength that I see in that group, where they can support each other, and they do. It's making sure that a group such as that, there's 7, I believe, in that group. I think the group, and they're all compatible.
And that's important.
Exactly. So somebody's not saying you should be strong. You should not let that affect you at this point. Give it over
Hmm.
to God.
Hmm.
Those. things. And I think that's more of somebody needing to say that rather than the person might needing to hear that. They may not need to hear that, and it may not click at that point in time.
Right. And then there's some things that we should not say when a
Yes.
person is grieving, which is so important. It gets worse the second year. Are you kidding me? Don't say that to a person. Don't tell them that it gets worse. I mean, and even if it does, they don't need to hear it on day 5 that the first year is bad, but the second year is worse. Don't tell them that. And of course, be strong. This one really got me. You should not get married again. Is what someone said to me. You shouldn't get married again. Your love story was so this that you should never remarry. Are you kidding me? Why would you tell someone to be alone forever?
And how does someone else even know what's best for you?
Exactly. You don't know. Right. Right. At some point, we don't even know what's best for us. So why would you tell someone something like that? And what I do tell my clients is not to make any major decisions during that first year because they may regret that decision. I'm just going to sell the house and I'm going to move. Well, is that really what you want to do? Are you just trying to run away from it? I had family members who wanted me to leave Florida and move to Georgia. And I said, I have a child in college. I'm not going to up and leave her down here by herself. That's not what I'm going to do. But we sometimes want to get away from it. What we don't realize is that it follows us. Don't make any brash decisions the first year. Understanding what not to tell people. And when your clients come to you and say, well, my friend told me it's going to get worse the second year. Unpack that and let's talk about that. And was that helpful for you at all? And 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, no, that's not helpful at all. They can come to that realization themselves. Yes.
Another thing that I hear people
Now,
ask is about finances. Very personal.
Oh boy.
That is really, I hate to say it this way, but it's really not any of their business.
It's not.
To know everything. Did
they have a life insurance policy? And if so, how much was it?
Exactly. And and
some people become predatory.
Yeah. And I tell my clients, you don't have to answer that. You can say, I don't want to answer that. I don't need to answer that. Or is it, I don't know. I don't remember. It's just kind of set it aside. So, and change the topic.
Yes. So. Change the topic. Tell them you don't feel comfortable answering that question. That's not something that you want to discuss. And for some people, you may have to say, that's really none of your business. You may have to say it like that, not rude, but just to get them to leave you alone. But again, like I said, some people are predatory. Well, I wonder how much the life insurance policy was. I wonder if I can get some of it. That's not for you. And it's amazing when it comes from your family or friends who do that. And that only makes the grief worse because the people that you thought you could depend on are the people who are doing this. And then there's also, before we get to the therapist self-care, there's also the people who say, I'll be there for you. I'll be there for you. I'll be there for you. And then after a while, they're gone. You can't call on them like you thought you could. They're not calling on you like you hoped that they would. And again, that causes the grief to be worse for some people because people do feel isolated. They do feel like they're by themselves, especially if you have no family or no family nearby. So you're thinking that your friends are going to check on you, and they may do it for about a good month or so, but then their lives, they're going back to their lives, and they don't think to check on a person that's grieving. I love the idea of that group. I think that's a great idea because at least that way the 7 people are there to support each other and no one's alone.
Mhm. And the important
That's
part of the group is they don't call it a grieving group. It's
mm-hmm,
called a fun name group, whatever it is. But
mm-hmm,
it's, it has nothing to do with the grieving process itself as far as the label of the group.
mm-hmm.
It could be the dancing group or, something like that. But it's not that heavy word grief
Right,
in it.
right. It's healing. It's a healing group. Even if it's not called that, it's a healing group.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's
Thank you.
important. That's
Mhm.
important. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because as therapists, we can talk to our clients about this and you can do this and you can do that. If that's something that you enjoy doing, why if you enjoy dancing, go dance.
Mhm.
Find people who like to go dancing, you go dancing. Or
Mhm.
if you're so bold, go by yourself and you might meet some people that you can dance with.
Yeah.
Any of those, or try something that you've always wanted to try that you never got a chance to do. Do it now. Especially when you're trying to figure out who you are today. Those things are so important. For therapists, I want you to practice your own self-care as you're dealing with grieving clients because it can actually trigger your grief. And if you're in the middle of grieving, because we are going to do it ourselves, and you're working with someone that's grieving, it can really trigger you. So it's important for you to, go to supervision if necessary, or at least speak to another therapist and peer support. Lean into your personal hobbies, what you're doing for yourself. Spend time with your friends and family. Healthy eating versus emotional eating. Now, we know what healthy eating is, but emotional eating is never healthy eating. Emotional eating is eating things that are, cookies and candy and cake and pie and pizza and you name it. If it's not healthy, that's emotional eating, or eating when you're not hungry. Trying to eat healthy versus eating emotionally. Enjoyable activities. Go out and do the things that you enjoy doing. Setting boundaries, saying no. If your client, you've seen your client, you've made an appointment for the next, you made another appointment and your client wants to call you on your day off to talk to you about this. It's not an emergency. Nothing, no one is in danger. You can say no. It's okay to set those boundaries. That is practicing self-care for yourself, doing the things that's going to be good and healthy for you as a therapist. Okay, let's see. And lastly, as therapists, it is our job to help our clients with their grief. However, their grief can trigger our grief. Please remember to practice self-care and if needed, speak with your supervisor or colleague. Thank you for your attention and your attendance. Are there any questions?
I have many, but I will let the
Yes.
other attendees ask first, but I have many.
Okay.
So anybody? Okay, so I'll go ahead and start. Okay.
Okay.
In your experience in doing grief work, what is your clinical opinion on self-disclosure of the therapist's grief?
I let my clients know, especially the widows and the widowers, I let them know that I am also a widow. That tends to help them open up more to me. They can share their experience with me and I'll say, I get it, I understand. And they know that I get it and I understand. It's up to you. You don't have to share if you don't want to, if you're not comfortable sharing. For me, I share that with them because a lot of times people refer them to me because I'm a widow. And they'll say to me, well, Miss So-and-so sent me to you because she told me that you're a widow too. And yes, I am. And
So
they'll ask me
you'll
questions.
confirm it. You'll confirm it,
Yes,
or they may ask questions,
yes.
but that's about as far as you'll go, is you'll confirm
I'll
it.
confirm it. I'll answer questions for them if they, If they need to ask me questions, if it's too personal, I won't answer it. If they'll say, well, how long were you married? I'll tell them how long I was married. Because if I'm dealing with somebody that was married for 30 years, okay, you were married a long time like me. Yeah, yeah. And we can talk about how being married for such a long period of time, how that's affecting them. It may not affect them the way it affected me or vice versa, but they feel more comfortable opening up more because they know that I have an understanding. And I tell them, I may not understand your grief. Because listen, there are times someone has passed away. You say, oh, I'm so sorry. And they'll go, I'm not. Depending on the relationship, they're not sorry. You have to keep that in mind as well. But when they ask the question, I answer it for them. I will say, yes, I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very helpful for them.
How do you balance providing information and not going all the way into psychoed kinds of stuff versus doing the therapy part? Because I could see how it would be very tempting, particularly for new therapists, to go into all kinds of education about stages and layers of grief and all of that kind of stuff. How would you advise maybe a new therapist managing that?
Listen to what your client is talking to you about. There may not even be a space for you to do psychoeducation. You may have to listen. I just need someone to hear me as I'm talking about my person that's passed away. I need someone to listen to me and hear me out. There may be times when you can say, well, you know what? Have you ever heard of the stages of grief? And they may say yes, and they may say no. And you can give them an idea of what it is. Because they may ask you, what is this that I'm going through? 1 minute I'm this, 1 minute I'm that. Oh, you're in the stages. You're in the stages of grief. And that this is what this is. And from what I've dealt with, they've appreciated understanding this is what this is. They may not remember it, but they know that it's something and that they're not. This is the thing. They want to make sure they're not going crazy. No, you are not going crazy. This is part of a stage of grief. You are not going crazy. That's the big one. Am I going crazy? No, you're not. That's the balance. Listen first. Listen intently and ask those questions. For lack of a better term, be nosy. Listen to what they're saying and then ask those questions that will help you understand better.
Like what are you experiencing? What are your
Yes.
concerns? Those kinds of
Yes.
questions.
And they may say something like, I just want to talk about my person. Well, then tell me about them. And listen. Listen to what they're saying. How long were you married? We were married for this many years. Okay. All right. Where did you all meet? And just listen. Because what was tears may become laughter. And you can use that. Well, I see that, when you're talking about it, you can still smile through your grief. You're still smiling. That's good that you're able to do that. Listen, ask the questions, and if necessary, give them that psychoeducation. Because like I said, a lot of people think they're losing their minds. Truly, they do. They think I must be going crazy because I'm crying 1 minute, I'm laughing the next minute, I'm angry today. At 7:45, I was angry, and at 7:50, I was in denial again. Yeah.
Yeah, Karen has just popped into the chat about a book called "You're Not Crazy, You're Grieving" by Alan Wolfelt, Wolfelt, and his approach is grieving is companioning. Karen, can you talk a little bit more about what Alan means by that?
It's been a long time. So you're not treating your people, you're not healing people, you're with them through the journey of their grief.
I see.
Yes.
So the therapist is companioning. Gotcha. Okay. So it's a therapist positioning that he's talking about there. Okay. Interesting.
And that's so important. That's so important because so many people who are grieving feel alone. And I'll tell them, listen, I will walk with you in this
Well,
journey. I'll
by
walk
your
with,
definition,
yeah,
grieving is when they're alone. Yeah.
yeah, they're
So,
alone.
to that, if someone, seeks therapy for the loss or for grieving, how likely are you to include family and other family members to make it more family therapy and not individual therapy?
Haven't had to do it yet. I will be more than willing to if they want their family to come in, but usually I'm dealing with people who've lost a spouse and they don't feel like anyone else can understand it and they do it alone. However, if they
Mm.
want to bring in their children to talk about it, if they want to bring in other family members, I'm more than welcome family members to come in so we can
Mhm.
work on it together. But
So that's
usually,
something you're willing to do, but that
most
has
definitely,
not actually happened. You've not
no,
actually done it.
no, I have
Okay,
not done it.
what would prompt you to request that?
My daughter is really struggling with the loss of her other parent, or my son is having difficulties in school, even though I don't personally work with children anymore, but my son is having difficulties in school, or they're in college and they're struggling. Do we need to bring them in?
Okay,
And
so
then maybe,
if they identify other people who are struggling,
mm-hmm,
you might bring them
mm-hmm,
in so that the
mm-hmm,
family can
mm-hmm.
find ways to grieve
Definitely.
together. Okay.
Or if they say,
Okay.
can my daughter, can my
Oh, sure, of course.
can someone come? Yes, of course. This is your time. You can bring whomever you want to bring.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
What
Go ahead.
sorts of things would be red flags for you, and how would you assess a client's process?
Again, crying every day. And it's been like there is not a client of mine, not a client of mine, just someone that I know through someone else who lost her husband about 10 years ago now. And she still cries every day.
Mhm.
Every single day.
So,
That
so
to me is a red flag.
as you identify complicated grief, that that
Hmm.
that it's
Yeah,
it's early stage behavior in a longer time,
right,
that would be red
right.
flag for you. Okay.
Or
And
they
so if
say, I'd be
someone's,
better off dead. I'd be better off dead.
well,
I want to be with my
there you
spouse.
go. Yeah,
Things
sure.
like
If
that.
we're, yeah, if we're talking about self-harm
Self-harm.
or
Hmm.
the need to actually do a suicide assessment or that kind of stuff, sure, that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Or
That
they're
makes
talking
sense.
about they want to get high. I feel better when I smoke, or I need to take 3 Tylenol PMs just to sleep at night. Those things I'm going to assess for.
Hmm. Hmm. And then, do you assess just straight up for depression, or are there other tools that you use?
I don't use an assessment tool. I listen. Again, I just listen to what they're saying. I'm not opposed to the assessment tools. But I listen to what they're saying, and
Hmm.
I'll look at my notes prior to the session, read, what's going on. And when I talk to them, I listen to what they're saying. And if I don't hear they're moving through their grief, not getting over, there's no such thing, moving through their grief. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about what's going on, because it seems like you're in the same place that you were when we first started meeting. What's happening? What are you going through? Are you sleeping? Are you eating? I ask the questions. I get
Hmm.
very inquisitive.
So you might ask a lot of those questions in the early sessions, and then
Hmm.
maybe revisit those as the work goes on to see if there
Yes.
is any shifts. And so
Yes.
you'd be looking for some sort of changes or shifts in
Yes.
their experiences, their frequency of crying, whether
Yes.
they're getting out and doing things, that
Yes.
sort of thing.
Or are they
Okay.
isolating even more? And I even ask, when was the last
Hmm.
time you went to the doctor? When was,
Hmm.
when was the last time you went to have you been to the dentist? When was the last time you did these things for your health? Do
Right.
you need
So
to make an
assessing
appointment?
assessing kind
Yeah.
of that self-care stuff. Yeah.
Yes. The self-care. But if they're still crying and they're not moving forward, do we need to talk to your doctor
Mm.
or to your psychiatrist if they have one about antidepressants? Because obviously I don't prescribe those. but talking to their doctor, because some people,
But
not
yeah,
all,
might
but
they
some people need
consider,
that. Would they
might they
consider it? Yes.
consider seeking
Hmm.
psychiatric help? Okay, those
Yes.
kinds of
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Now, I'm imagining that it would make sense at some point to ask questions about culture and family
Mhm.
rituals, and what are the rituals that your family does and things like that. Is there any thoughts you have on the timing of that? That that you would introduce that early stages, mid stages, when you've seen certain work done? When might you introduce some of those ideas?
Depends on the person and where they are. But if it could be in the early stages. So if I meet someone who is Jewish, I will ask, so you all sat Shiva for 7 days, yes? Okay, how was that? And I'll ask them, can you explain it to me? I allow
Mm-hmm.
them to teach me. If they're from an Eastern culture, explain to me what your culture does in grief. We wear black, other cultures wear white. So explain to me what your culture does. That can be a little bit later. It's as they are talking to me about who they are and what they do. And I'll ask, is that cultural? Yes. Okay. Can you explain it to me a little bit? Because I don't know and I want to learn. Because I think if I learn about it, then I can continue to help them with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, as systemic therapists, we always center, even if we're seeing an individual, we always center them in their larger context. So, I'm assuming, but tell me if I'm off track here, that we would still do a genogram to see who all is in the family, who has already passed, previous experience with loss,
Mhm.
and also looking for the resources of those people. And
Mhm.
from what you've said today is that there's at least some possibility that the clients will have people in their world that aren't being particularly helpful, or
Right.
are full of too many shoulds and things
Mhm.
like that. And so what are the kinds of conversations you have with them about those people that are not being particularly helpful?
Like I'll ask, what was their role in the person that passed away? Oh,
Good question. I like it.
it's his mom or his brother or his best
Mm,
friend or her family members, and they said they would be with me, but it's hard for them. It's just as hard, if not harder for them. It's harder for her mom because this was her child, or it was harder
mm-hmm,
for his dad. Okay, they call, but they don't call as often as I would like, and they don't always answer the phone when I call them to check on them. Those
mm-hmm,
are the things that can happen with when dealing with people who you would think would be checking on them and they're not.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's too painful for the other people.
Right. So you might talk about that. You might talk about
Mhm.
the client's understanding of what's going on with these other people.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. But I
So
love
that the
that
so
question about what was their role with the person that's departed. Yeah.
Mhm.
I I,
And
I really
you
like
don't
that
want the
part.
seed of you don't want the seed of bitterness to be planted. Also, they're already
Mm,
sad, they're already angry. You don't want them to feel bitter towards the people that they thought would be there for them. If you know what the role was, then maybe you can stop that seed from being planted. Well, they're going through it too.
mm, mm-hmm,
The same person died, but that person had different roles in other people's lives,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
in understanding that.
Yeah, so that's a lovely systemic perspective to take about
Mhm.
how the person who has died was a role in all these other people's lives. What was so you could even
Mhm.
talk about that as well. So
Mhm.
what was their role with each other, right?
Mhm.
Exact.
Right.
I
Right.
really like that. Um, so I'm hearing two major messages with other people. One is a withdrawal, right? That the people kind of disappear. That's kind of
Mhm.
one typical thing that happens. And the
Yes.
other one is that they're the ones that give a lot of the shoulds and be
Mhm.
strong and you should be moving on. So
Yeah.
it's one or the other. It's those are the two classic things
Yes.
that you seem to be talking about is the things that they find. And I suppose then to find that middle ground,
Yes.
people who are present but not judgy, is where
Yes.
those RESA scores come in. So perhaps the
Yes.
groups or the activities
Yes.
or things
Or
like
the
that.
friends. I mean, I have a
Mm-hmm.
friend, my children's godmother. She and her family were there from the beginning. She's the one who brought my son to the hospital and stayed with me. She
Mm-hmm.
called her mother, she called her best friend, and they came. I thought I was going to drive us home. I planned on driving me and my son home. No, her best friend drove me home, or she drove me home, and her best friend drove her car. They followed me. And
Mm-hmm.
so, having her to say, I'm here with you, I'm praying for you, I'm holding your hand, I've got you, I've got the kids. You need those people in your life because when you have
So you
one
would talk
extreme and
about
the
that.
other,
You would
yes,
talk about who are those people,
who are
right?
those people that are
Not the
there?
ones that
Mhm.
are isolated or withdrawing, and not the ones that are judging, but who are
Who
the
stayed?
supportive, right? And see, I would be very tempted to want to bring those people into session,
Hmm.
to bring the village in,
If
would be my
necessary, if it's
temptation.
needed, if it's necessary. Some people want to just do the therapy, just the two of you, like you and your
Mm,
client.
mm.
Sometimes they want to bring the other people in. I always followed my client's lead,
Sure. Sure. Well,
right?
I'm wondering if people assume they're supposed to be in therapy alone, and so the invitation to
Mhm.
bring in those other people might be a novel idea for
Right.
clients, and
Some
so
do. Some
so
do. Some
to
do.
provide that invitation. Sure, sure,
Yes.
okay. Because I certainly being a systemic therapist would want to always communicate that this is a relational issue
Mm-hmm.
just like every other issue,
Mm-hmm.
and to invite people into the room, or at least invoke those people in the room,
Yes.
if not
Yes.
physically bring them in. Sure,
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
All right, did that spark any questions for the rest of you? I told you I had a lot. did
Those are
uh
great questions.
well, and I have a question I have to write down about what is their role in the departed's life. I would not have thought of that on my own right away. So I really like that one a lot.
Good. I'm
But
glad.
anyone else sparked by kind of more questions about how, what does the therapy part of it look like? We've kind of moved between how the therapist process of being in grief, and then kind of talking about what the client's process is in grief. And I'm, wanting to be more interested in what is the therapeutic uh, tools, process, techniques, assessment, interventions, those kinds of things. So typically, Adana, your assessment, you said, is mostly just in the clinical interview, not any sort of formal, depression inventories or any of that sort of thing.
Because, of course, they're depressed. Now, if they have a history of depression, then yes, we should do a depression assessment for sure. But if
Mm,
not, I expect them to be depressed. I expect them to be sad and crying and talking about their feelings and what they're dealing with.
mm-hmm,
But I also expect, which is what I say when I say I'm listening to them, I also expect them to tell me that I had a better day. Maybe not a good day, but I had a better day.
mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
feeling better. It doesn't feel as heavy as it did before.
Mm-hmm. And how might you then help a client sort the difference between this is grief versus this is depression? Actual, major
Depression.
depression.
Again, how long have we been doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Has it been, okay, we've been talking about this and you haven't moved forward again with a complicated grief. Is this grief or are you depressed?
Mm-hmm.
I can't get out of bed. Okay. I've gained so much weight because I'm emotional eating. I'm always sad. I'm always crying. Okay, well now this sounds like you're depressed. Do you have a history of this going on? I know we didn't really we may have touched on it initially, but you came to me for grief. Do you have a history of it? yes or no, whatever the answer is. Okay, so let's talk about what we can do to help you with this depression. Let's go over, let me ask some questions, and then I'll start going, through an assessment. While I'm talking to them, I'm finding whatever it is I need to use, to help them. But again, for me, for other therapists, it's different. But for me, I listen, and I'm listening. I think I'm listening for certain words. After a while, you know what you're listening for.
Right, and that's what I was thinking is for a new therapist, right, or a student therapist, having an idea of I think we've done a great job of kind of covering the process and kind of what to expect along the way. But they might, a new therapist might not know what to listen for. So you'd have your ear open for those more typical depression symptomologies that are not confined to, say, the first 3 months. If it's going beyond that, yeah.
So something
I think
like
the DSM only gives you 2 weeks. I mean,
So I think for a new therapist, you can listen for things like I can't get out of bed. I don't have an appetite, or I'm overeating. I have no energy to do anything anymore. I just, I don't like what I'm seeing when I look in the mirror anymore. I'm not myself anymore. Then to me, those little red flags, they're doing like this. They're like ding, and they're flying. Okay, let's talk about that, because it sounds like you're depressed. Or I'm not sleeping when I wake up. I'm jumping up out of my sleep. Okay, that sounds like anxiety. What's going on?
Right.
Or I'm dealing with anxiety. Okay, when is your anxiety the worst? This is a question I ask my clients. When is your anxiety the worst? Is it worse in the morning when you're just waking up, during the day, or when you're going to bed? Because for me, personally, my anxiety wakes me up in the morning and it says good morning. If I know that can happen to me, I know it can happen to someone else. When are you feeling the most anxious? And listening and answering, we talk about grounding techniques. Okay. And if that's not, again, medication is the last thing I go to. It is the very last thing I go to. Do we need to talk to your doctor? Is it time for a checkup?
So it's possible then that the grief process and depression might overlap.
For sure.
Most definitely. So there's a need to be having that assessment mindset, so that we might actually, the process might be caught sooner, as you were saying, so that it doesn't turn into complicated grief.
Right. Okay. Because the person I was telling you all about, who's been crying for the last 10 years, she doesn't have a therapist. She doesn't want one.
Or friends and family that are supportive, apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And her spouse was died suddenly as well. And then what I didn't discuss is that sometimes sudden death is one thing. Expected death is something else. And
so the circumstances around the death can be a big factor. Sure.
A huge factor. We were expecting this person to pass away. They were ill or what have you, versus they left the house, didn't come home. They had a heart attack and died. Or they were in a car accident, or they were this, or they were that. Completely different.
Sure. Yes. Or worse, that they were murdered.
Or they were murdered.
I'm sure that sort of thing. So that certainly sounds like an early assessment is to find out about the circumstances of the death.
Very gently, very, very gently, because they'll be crying.
Sure. And that's okay. I mean, if they're crying in sessions, that's no problem.
It most certainly is, but you want to be gentle in how you probe them with that question, especially in the first few. And the person might have died a month ago or so, but it's still very raw.
Well, and I'm guessing that most people don't seek grief therapy in that first month or so, because they're still in the shock and dealing with it.
Not
So
unless you're a therapist.
that's your experience. Well, right, right. So a
Not unless
therapist might, right? A
a
fellow
ther
therapist might.
because for me, I made sure both of my children were in therapy before I went to
Mm,
therapy. I made sure my daughter went back to college and she had a therapist. My
mm,
son's school contacted kids in distress, which is also very important. If you're dealing with someone who has children, their school can also offer resources for you because even as a therapist, I didn't, my mind, the widow's fog, I didn't know where to go. The school jumped in and said, we work with kids in distress. Kids in distress came to my house.
mm,
But I
mhm.
made sure that my children were in therapy first. Then I went to therapy. And I think it might have been 6 weeks
6 weeks, yeah.
for
Yeah, so
me. Yeah.
it could be very early. So again,
Very.
hearing more of the story
Mm-hmm.
will kind of have you a sense of kind of where they are in the process
Yes.
and what is kind of expected or typical
Yes.
of
Yes.
where they're at. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've run out of time. I will never run out of questions, as you know, Adana. Does anyone else have any final comments? Anybody want to share maybe something that they are taking from this? I mean, I have my new question about role. That's kind of my takeaway. Anybody else want to share kind of something they're taking away from the last hour and a half? Anyone want to share that?
It just
Yeah.
reaffirmed for me um, um, that grief is so much a part of our lives, all
Mm,
around us, everywhere, and people learn how to deal with it in multiple ways. And there's no
hmm.
one way, right, wrong, indifferent, whatever.
Right, right. And
Um,
our particular Western culture does a terrible job of teaching about it. I mean, we should
yeah,
probably teach about it
yeah.
far earlier in the lifespan. But yeah, but thank you,
Mhm.
Tommy.
And
Andrea,
I
what
think
did you?
Andrea, yeah.
Yeah, Andrea?
I like the question about like, have you given yourself permission? But even the follow-up, are you allowed to now? Because,
Mm,
a lot of people have the job of taking care of everything and, they don't think about like I can't be strong. I got kids. I got, my sisters are gonna look to me. Okay, here now, can you grieve today? So that was a
hmm.
Right.
good question that I wrote down and taken with me.
Nice, nice.
So,
Debbie, any thoughts of what you're taking from today?
Just really appreciative. I think it was very helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay.
you're
Karen,
welcome.
any thoughts you want to share? Thank you again, Karen, for the book reference.
Yes.
None really. There's just you know, when I lost both my parents in a very short period of time, mom was sudden and unexpected. Dad was unexpected but not sudden. And one of the local grief experts, when I was looking for something to some like grief group or something, she said, "No, it's too soon. You shouldn't do it." So like I was rather frustrated. She also
Yes,
said,
yes.
"Your father died of a broken heart." I said, "No, he died of double pneumonia and heart disease and COPD. He would have died anyway. It just happened that mom died unexpectedly."
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
so even the experts can say the wrong things.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I think the biggest message, Adana, that you've given is listen. And
Right.
I think sometimes avowed experts are leaning into their expertise rather than listening. Yes, Beth.
Yeah.
So I lost my husband 2 years and 5 months ago,
I'm so
and
sorry.
I was right in the middle of my 2-year MFT
Oh,
program with
geez.
Dr. Schooley as my faculty advisor, and I wanted to affirm that it was helpful to my clients to know that I was a widow. I had a couple of referrals of people that were widows, and they felt like somehow I could understand more. And so
Mhm.
it was that self-disclosure was very beneficial to them.
Mm,
So, so yeah. And being a student therapist, immediately sought therapy after about 8 weeks, I think. So um, it made a big difference in my process, but it's still very difficult. So it is it's and it one day I'm okay, and the next day something triggers me, and I I can barely cope. So
Yes.
yeah.
Those
So
waves
thank you for
are
being
different.
here.
You're welcome. And I'm sorry about your loss. Those waves, when they come, they can be hard and harsh. And we just
Yes,
have to
that is
we have to ride
true.
them and move. Like I said, there's no such thing as getting over, but there is something as moving through.
Right. I had so many people tell me the second year is the worst, or one woman who her husband had been gone for 8 years, she said, I wish I could tell you it gets better, which in many ways, what for me was a good thing because um, then I had a different expectation and it allowed me to be okay with it taking a while. So,
Mhm.
um, but nobody said that to me right away. So anyway, but
For me, being 7 years, it was 7 years last month in February. Um, I still have my moments of tears. I still have my moments of wanting to have a conversation with him. Last year was a wonderful year. Our youngest graduated from high school. He started college. It was great, but there was a tinge of pain behind all the
yeah.
smiles and all the laughter and
Oh, of course. Yeah.
proud. I'm a proud mother. So I got him. Lord, thank you. I got him through high school. Yay. Because his dad died right before he turned 12. So I got him through. I'm so happy I got him through. Do you see our baby? I went when I took him to college. I came home and I wrote in my journal that I have just from my late husband. Our baby started college today, and that was the entry. That was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I talk
Those
to
are the
my husband
things.
all the time. We
Yeah,
talk a lot.
we talk a lot. We talk a lot. And I tell my clients the same thing. You can talk to your person. It's okay to talk to them. Some will say, "Oh, I had dreams about them," or "I feel their presence." That's allowed. They're allowed to say that. There's nothing wrong with them. I had a dream about my late spouse. Okay, how was the dream? When you woke up, were you sad or were you happy?
Yeah.
Those things,
Yep.
and you'd be surprised. They were smiling. They were okay. They were, you know, they were telling me that they're okay. Okay, and how was that for you? So
It's the classic both and, right? You
both
can be
and
both.
for sure.
That's right.
Yes.
Both ends. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the time and people are already starting to leave. So
Yes.
thank you again, Adana, for your presentation and for everyone else's attendance. And I wish you a good night.
Good
Good
night, everyone.
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you for
Thank you
coming.
so much.
Thank you for doing this, Dr. Schooley and Adana.
Night.